Hello and welcome to episode 57 of the Weighing Room, where the three of us are back together this week after a week off. No Saturday racing last week, obviously, with Jack Frost winning last week. But we're back for our Christmas special podcast. And we're previewing the action from across all the Christmas period, really, with Kempton, Leopardstown, and Chepstow at the forefront of our mind. And we have got one race from Wetherby as well on Boxing Day. Frankie, what a lineup we've got over Christmas period. It's the same every year. We look forward to the Christmas racing, don't we? But especially on Boxing Day.
Oh, it's brilliant. I absolutely love it. I mean, it's back to back racing, isn't it? If you're going, it's fantastic because you still get that festive feel. And if you're sat at home, you can have kind of like iPad set up on one screen, telly on the other, different race courses, football matches going on, and basically sit and watch sport and eat and drink. It's one of the best days. Boxing Day is better than Christmas Day for most racing fans. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm actually going to Kempton this year for the first time. I declined last year to spend more time with the family and ended up not talking to anyone and just watching racing anyway. So I'm going to actually go this time and make the most of it.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, brilliant. And Paul, obviously, when you used to be a jockey, Christmas period must have been quite busy for yourself. Obviously, now doing what you're doing is slightly different.
Just a bit, James. It's funny you should mention it. Like I can remember there was one year I was riding at Kempton over the Christmas period, and I just landed home. I went home for about 2 or 3 days before it, put on about the guts, I'd say £10. So Christmas Day was spent. I was based in the north at the time, drove down to Kempton on Christmas Day, and yeah, I was ready for a good sweat. I think I had like something like £7 or £8 to lose when I landed at Kempton on Boxing morning. So then to say like yeah, some of the one of the years I was at Sedgefield for a horse that I remember one of the rides I had was I hadn't got much of a chance, but I'm claiming off 10 stone. So you can imagine Christmas Day was a bit of a non-event. But yeah, now it's certainly you can just. But at the time, that's your mindset. I wouldn't have had it any other way, you know. But at the time, yeah, as I said, I wouldn't have had it any other way, and you probably had to be a bit like that. But yeah, now I can certainly sit back and relax and enjoy it.
Yeah, exactly. Just like the rest of us, hopefully. Right then, lads, we'll get straight into it. And the first race we're going to cover on this Christmas pod is the Grade One Ladbrokes Long Walk Hurdle. A race obviously that got postponed from Ascot. That's now been put onto this card, thankfully for us, because it's a race we want to see. And at the top of the market, we've got Champ at 2-1, Paisley Park, everyone's favourite horse, 11-4. Miranda 3-1 that's been backed in since being declared. Goshen at 9-2, and then Not So Sleepy, the outside of the field, at 12-1. Frankie, we'll start with you on this. Not the biggest field in the world, but still some quite nice horses that we've seen before over time, haven't we?
Yes, it's a decent race. It's a tricky race. I can't. I mean, I'll start off by saying I can't see why Paisley Park and Champ are split in the betting as much as they are. There was absolutely nothing between them at Newbury. And if anything, for that run, for me, I'd probably would swing me in Paisley Park's favour. I know that Nicky mentioned a few times they were worried that going to Newbury we might see the best of Champ on his first start, and he might kind of decline from there because he does go well fresh. And they were hesitant to take that run at Newbury, and he did have to fight and work hard that race. So I think Paisley Park, if you were looking at those two, is overpriced. But I'm jumping back on the Goshen hype. I really think this race could unlock a little bit more potential. I mean, Paisley Bank and Champ are only getting older. Goshen's only 6. Last time out was brilliant, pulling away from Brewing Up a Storm, who's absolutely no mug of a horse. 8 lengths clear of Brewing Up a Storm. And if you go back, the 2 starts before that over fences, so you can put a line through that. We know that he's no chaser. You go back again, 2 starts on the flat. Again, we're not running on the flat, so although they were good races, let's ignore them as well. And then you go back to his 2 hurdle starts before that. He won both of them easily enough, I know, over 2 miles. But his last 3 hurdle runs has been very impressive. Last time over 2.5. I can't see any reason why he doesn't get 3 miles. He absolutely eats up ground on a good day. And I think this could genuinely unlock a little bit more Goshen potential. So the dream's back alive for Team Goshen. And what's an interesting race? I'm going with the interesting, quirky horse.
Well, he certainly is quirky, isn't he? And he's a horse, love or hate him, regardless of what you do, he's been great for the sport, hasn't he? Because from what he's done from when he was a juvenile, and obviously what happened at Cheltenham, since then, he said he's been back on the flat, over fences, now back over hurdles. He's been a brilliant horse, and at 9-2, look, he'll probably go from the front. I know Not So Sleepy will probably be the pace in the race, but wouldn't be surprised if Goshen went off as well. And it's either go one or two ways. Goshen will either stay the trip out and be the horse that everyone thinks he is, well, especially back home, or it'll set it up for Paisley Park coming off the pace, because Champ will be up there as well. Paul, for yourself in this one?
I've gone with Champ. I think he'll confirm that form with Paisley, purely for the fact that I think Kempton will be more of a disadvantage for Paisley Park. I'd be more confident on his chances if we were at Ascot. But with emphasis more on speed than stamina here, I think that'll be a disadvantage to Paisley Park. So I've gone with Champ. I could see Goshen. I think Frankie's made a valid point there. I'd be more afraid of Miranda. She was a good winner of a mare's listed race when last seen at Kempton. So she's definitely interesting and obviously held in high regard by connections. But for the reasons just mentioned, I've gone with Champ.
See, this is why horse racing is so great, because everyone has different opinions. Because I even though I agree with the sense that Paisley Park, Ascot, rather at Kempton would have a better chance, because I think it is more of a speed track than it is for stayers, and Paisley Park's one of the best staying hurdlers we know, just keeps going. But for me, I can pick more holes in the other horses. So I'm going to stick with Paisley Park. It's a tough one for me, and sometimes you can't. If you're gonna back something, you can't back it emotionally. But with this horse, I think you have to bring emotion into it, because what this horse has done for connections and how it just runs. When you look at it, and we all know when we watch it, coming around the bend, always off the bridle, hits its flat spot, but still stays on and comes from absolutely nowhere like a bullet train. And I think, like you said, Frankie, from Champ around 15 to 8, 2 to 1, Paisley Park. Now, what I've seen 11 to 4, some places 3 to 1. That's, for me, I don't see why there's so much difference. I think Champ needs to be absolutely fresh. I think if you look at what he's done first time out during his seasons, obviously last season he went on to win a cracking race, and then this year obviously just beat Paisley Park. For me, I might have egg in my face, but I'm not scared of Miranda at all, because I don't think she's done it against the boys. I think she's done it in her own company, now coming out, taking on the boys. Yes, they're older. She needs to prove that to me. Goshen, yes, he can throw in a bad race, but he is still a good horse on his day. But when he's been running over slightly shorter, now going up to 3 miles, has he got that in his locker? And Not So Sleepy, I just think we'll go from the front and try and win it there, and won't be able to stay it out. So that's when I went through the horse. I just thought Paisley Park for me was the one I'm going to stick with. I think, yes, you like what you said with the track. It's not going to help him, but I think he can overcome that. He's looking for his third win in this race. Yeah, I know it's a different course, but if you look at what he's done throughout his career, 3 clear hurdles, a stayers hurdle, two long walks, a long distance hurdle. He knows how to win these races. And yes, he's older, but to me, he's retaining all the ability, and that's all I wanted to see in this last race. So for me, at the prices, Paisley Park, but it's a fascinating race, even though it's only a small field. And I think if you look at them, you can make a case, and you could also make a case against them all as well. So a cracking race to start us off then. Right, then we're going to start at Kempton for the next race we're going to cover. And it's another grade 1. It's the Quarto Star Novices Chase, also over 3 miles. Paul, won by some nice horses in the past. Obviously, Brave Man's Game last year for Paul Nicholls. He's got the favourite this year, McFabulous. Who do you fancy?
Yeah, I think he'll win it again this year, as the betting suggests. I'm all over McFabulous, who hasn't looked back since pulling up on Chasing Debut out in Kempton back in November. He's won on both starts since then. He was very good at Newbury last time out, where he had Time Hill about 6.5 lengths behind him in second. And I think McFabulous will confirm that form here. You got Gelino Bello also representing Paul Nicholls. Brioni Frost is on board. Gelino Bello's won his last 4, but I think McFabulous will take this. It's going to be interesting here with the 3 mile starts just past the winning post. You're going downhill. The first couple of fences are going to be crucial, because if you miss, for these novices particularly, because if you miss one of them fences, I think that the last fence before you turn out to head into the back straight is a ditch. And if you do miss one of those, particularly early on from the 3 mile start, you're on the back foot. So the first half mile will be crucial here. And I'm with McFabulous.
Yep, I'm with you here, Paul. I think McFabulous race to lose. With this horse, if you look at back at his hurdling days, all he wanted was 2 mile 5. You can never get that 3 miles. But if you watch him last time out over fences, these fences have seemed to be the absolute making of him. And I know he's 8 years of age now, and he maybe should have gone over him next year. And if you probably ask Paul Nicholls, now seeing how he's been doing over fences, he might say I should have took him over a bit earlier. But He's been out this season. We've seen him 3 times. The one at Wincanton, look, I think the ground was way too firm from that day. He never really got going, was pulled up. But his runs at Exeter was a really nice start. I thought he jumped his fences brilliantly. But last time, the way he put Time Hill away, for me, was very, very taking. I don't think Gelino Bello showed enough in both his wins for me to go and beat McFabulous. I think the Skelton's horse, Gallia des Leteaux, is a really, really nice mare. But I just think this might come a bit too soon for her. I think Time Hill's got a lot to do off the back of that performance. And obviously, Mortlack, it's difficult for him because he's probably a handicapper going into a grade 1. I think McFabulous around, even money? I think he's the one to be. And I think the only way he'll lose if he throws it away with his jumping. But for what he's shown so far, you wouldn't think that's going to happen. And I know, like we said, over hurdles, he wasn't one for 3 miles. But like you were talking about earlier in the other race, this is more of a speed track for him. I think he'd be absolutely perfect. He's won round here before. Yes, over a little bit shorter, but handles the track no problem. I think McFabulous, a big fancy of mine as well on the card. Frankie, are you going to make it a hat-trick or are you going elsewhere?
Hat-trick's in. Yeah, looks a solid bet, doesn't it? It's got to go to Paul Nicholls, really, this race. They're 2 similar horses at the top of the market, really, both Nicholses. They're both rated around 150 over hurdles. Both completed 2 chase starts. Obviously, McFabulous had the one where it pulled up. And I think really the difference will come in jumping for me. They've both got big engines on them. Gelino Bello really does travel well, but he just comes unstuck a bit with his jumping and loses a little bit of momentum. Whereas McFabulous, like you said at Newbury, was really, really good over his fences, and it didn't really stop him at all. Like a fence didn't change his momentum at all. He just took the fences, kept traveling. That's what you want over 3 miles. So they're similar horses of similar ability, but the jumping's the difference for me. And I think McFabulous will be hard to beat. And the market kind of speaks for that as well. And even Cobden retaining the ride, he doesn't often get it wrong when he gets the choice of 2 of Paul's. So 3 in for McFabulous.
Yep. Yeah, I think he's a solid bet, and hopefully he can show us all that. Right then, gents, we're going to just nip over to Wetherby for their feature race. And it's the Grade 3 Roland Merrick Handicap Chase. This, over the last few seasons, has seen horses that are running in your Grade 2s, maybe trying to creep into Grade 1s, that are running back in a handicap, maybe first time out or just leading on to bigger things. And I think it's the case as well this year, because at the top of the market, we have Shamblu for Dan Skelton. Obviously, he's run at Wetherby before in the Charlie Hall, and he's tried to become a Grade 1 horse, and he probably hasn't. But it is a fascinating race because you are seeing handicappers go against these horses. So, Frankie, we'll start with you. Who do you like in this one?
Into Overdrive. Really like this horse, actually. A solid each-way bet, this. I mean, has raced at Wetherby 3 times before, has won one of those this year and placed the other 2 as well. And you just look at the trajectory of the horse. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 4 on the bounce with a rising mark, taking it all in stride, was clearly well above the handicapper, well ahead of the handicapper, and then only has been beaten by Lompress, who could go and win a Gold Cup this year. So I think off of just a £4 rise, this horse has still got more in the tank. And if it wasn't for Lompress, would have made it 5 on the bounce for me. And probably that's been quite handy in not seeing a too severe rise in the weights. Having that second to Lompress last time, if he'd have gone and won another race, I think they would have hiked him up a little bit more. So that's probably a blessing, maybe, to come and win a race like this off of 142. I think it's really solid if you're getting around 6-1 to play that each way. Should be in the mix. Into Overdrive.
Yep, I'm absolutely with you. Into Overdrive is my selection as well in this, and for the reason that I think with a lot of bookies you'll be able to get extra place. If you can get 11-2, 6-1, I think it's an each way bet to nothing, because I think this goes really close regardless. I think the only way it's going to get beat if he bumps into something that's, like I said at the start, a graded horse in a handicap or someone that's extremely well handicapped. But I still think, even though this horse, if you look back with Mark Wolford, and when he started winning, I think it was back in March, over 2 mile 5 at Carlisle, that was off a marker 112. He's gone up to 142 now, but to me, he still looks like he's improving. He's winning. He's won at Hexham, Perth, Wetherby, in between 2.5 and 3 miles. The 3 miles last time at Newcastle behind Lompress. Obviously, he was getting a lot of weight, but to still go close regardless with Lompress is what? Joint favourite for a King George, probably second, third favourite for a Gold Cup. Those horses are going to be in the 160s, 170s. So for a horse like this to still be up 142 and for running that well last time out, I only still think he's progressing. I think there's a little bit more left in his mark. I think the £4 rise, like you said, is not bad at all for the run last time out. I think he's got a great chance around 11-2, 6-1. So I'm with you there. Paul, for yourself?
Well, when I was looking at this race, I was seeing 16-1 about this horse, and I'm seeing it as big as 25s now. I think that's a huge price for Top Bill Ben. He won this race back in 2019. He was third behind Goodbye Bobby in the race last year. He was third in the handicap hurdle at Lingfield when last seen in early November. Slight concern was he had a pretty hard race back then, so hopefully he's none the worse. He can be quite hard on himself. He is a horse who likes to get his own way out in front, but I think if he gets into a nice rhythm, I think if he does have I wouldn't say relatively easy time, because he won't get that, but I think if he holds enough in reserve, 3 places here, if you can get 25-1 come Boxing Day, I think you have to have an each way flutter on Topville Ben.
Yeah, big price, Topville Ben. Like you say, knows how to win the race. So 25-1, he might be of a little interest. We're going to go back over to Kempton then for another Grade 1. And this, it looks a bit of a walkover, doesn't it, lads? The Grade 1 Christmas hurdle. Constitution Hill, how far does he go and win by? But we've probably got to talk about the rest of the horses in behind him, because a few have turned up more than I actually thought. Obviously, we've got Epatante in there, 11-2, 6-1. It's a shame for her, really, because she probably would have gone really close in this race if he wasn't in it. But everyone wants to see Constitution Hill. So Royal, 12-1. Metier, 40-1. And then Highway 102, 50-1. Frankie, how far does he win by?
That's the question, isn't it? For all that he's an amazing horse to watch, doesn't give us much to talk about, does he? Because there's not much to say besides he's going to go and win. I think it's a repeat of Newcastle. Constitution Hill wins. Aidan Coleman will know his job in second. Well, maybe he'll disagree with me, but I think his job is to come second and ride a race that puts Epatante to come second. And then the rest of the field, I wouldn't be too interested in. No disrespect to them, but I think that's how it will go. It'll be a repeat of Newcastle. Big round of applause for Constitution Hill. That's Nico's and Nikki's Christmas present. All safe and sound and head to Cheltenham.
Yeah, look, Constitution Hill should be going on and winning this race. What he did to
a start. Oh, you probably heard this as well. Actually, maybe one thing to mention. I think a cumulative 62 lengths he's racked up in 5 wins. It's mental, isn't it?
Ridiculous, isn't it? And for a horse like you say that hasn't really had that many runs, what he did in the Supreme, what he did last time out, what he's going to do hopefully here. He's 1-3 for a champion hurdle. Like it's ridiculous. He's a horse you want to get behind and you want to back because you know he's going to win, but you can't back him with these prices because unless you've got all the money in the world, and if people want to gamble responsibly, you don't do that. So he's a horse that you obviously love to watch. And what is he 1-5, 1-6 here? He'll go on and win. If you're going to play, you probably play the lengths, don't you? But he might not even get that bigger price on the lengths. This is where my bet would be. I'd have Epatante each way. I'd have Epatante without him. I just think she'll probably finish 15 lengths behind him, but she could finish another 10 lengths ahead of the rest. So that would be my play if I was playing anything in the race. Paul, is it just a case of how far does he win by? But is there anyone else in behind that you think could grab second?
No, not really. No, it's just the start. He wins as he likes. If you're Aidan Coleman, I don't think it matters what you do really. I think if he tries to bowl along with Constitution Hill early, that'll probably put paid his chances of finishing second. So he probably rides the mare as he finds her, and as best possible to finish to her best placing, which as the betting suggests is second. But I don't think it matters what way. You might get some of the other lads, Sammy, Johnny Burke or Jamie Moore, maybe dropping out last and maybe try it and ride to finish second. If there were any mishaps in front, but barring disaster, Constitution Hill leads them home from Epatante.
Yeah, I agree. I just think it's a slight shame for Epatante and obviously JP McManus because this horse was going to the international hurdle, and that would have been a more proper race for Epatante to see where she actually is this season, because you had the likes of Nappers Hill. I like to move it. Yes, she was getting a slight bit of weight off them, but they're the rising stars in that field. Whereas Epatante, yes, I know she's 8, but she still retains a lot of ability. And I think that would have been a better race to see. Obviously, that was called off, so she has to go here. I personally think if we're talking in the future, I'll be surprised if she does go to the champion hurdle this year. She'll probably go in the mare's hurdle, won't she? Or maybe just straight to Aintree and win the race she did last year. But yeah, I think she'll finish second. But I think it's all about Constitution Hill in this race. Right then, the final event from Kempton on Boxing Day we're going to cover is the big one. It's the Grade 1 King George over 3 miles. And for me, it's a very, very tricky betting renewal this season because the top of the market, Brave Man's Game 15-8, Long Press 2-1. Envoy Allen's been backed in slightly actually from 8-1 into 5s. Hitman out to 6-1, and then you've got bigger price of Frodon 20-1, Raw Guy 20-1, 25's about Hoy Senor, 33's about Eldorado Allen, which could be a big price, and 66-1 for Miller's Bank. Paul, we'll start with you on this one. It's a cracking renewal for me because there's fascinating angles at the top of the market and in the middle as well. So who are you going with?
I've gone with Brave Man's Game. Paul Nichols' record in the race is fantastic. Brave Man's Game himself was a good winner. Charlie Hall, he beat Hoy Senor in the Cauto Star last season and then finished about 30 lengths behind the same rival when they clashed at Aintree in April. But I think this time of the year is the time to catch Brave Man's Game. I think as the season progresses, you just might struggle to hold his form. Hitman also is of interest around 15-2, also for the Nichols team. Sam Twiston Davis on board. The fractions, as you know, in King George, the fractions early on is going to be pretty generous over the first few. But it's set for fascinating stuff. And I've gone with Brave Man's Game.
Yeah, like you said, he's absolutely cracker in all the race. Frankie, are you with Paul or are you going elsewhere?
Oh, for so many of these races on Boxing Day, I kind of went through and made my notes and didn't make a selection for so long. And this is one of the races where I'm chopping and changing
you are bang on with
all
that.
the time. Look, I'm a massive fan of Long Press. I'd love Charlie Dutch to go and win a King George. And I am going to stick with Long Press. I don't like to move away from horses that I think are the best horse in the race just because of the day or the track or the time of year, although that can be smart. And that is what I think might get Brave Man's Game through here, is I think the track is just bang on for him. As Paul said, Nichols loves to win this race and can win this race, and this would have been the target. So kind of all the boxes are ticked for Brave Man's Game, but I just wonder if Long Press, they think he's that good. Because I know at the start of the season, they said they were going to go straight to the Gold Cup. They think he's that good. They think they can come and win this as well. And I'm a believer of that. I think he's a really, really good horse. So I'm going to stick with Long Presse. But at the top of the market, it's really hard to split those two. And then one you mentioned could be overpriced. I think is overpriced. Eldorado Allen, a second in the Charlie Hall behind Brave Man's Game, and a second in the Betfair Chase behind Protectorate. That could be one that will come off the pace and pick up the pieces at an each way price. I really do think he could be in with a shout of placing. And at 33s, I really don't think that's a bad each way bet. And would be brilliant for the Tizzards as well, especially with the sad news of Q Card this morning. For them to go and win a King George over Christmas following that would be brilliant. So yeah, it's hard to hit the top two, but if you had to pin me, Long Presse to win and Eldorado at an each way price.
Yeah, I think what you said about Long Press is exactly how I feel about the horse, because I think this horse is the classiest horse in the race. But the problem you have is Paul Nichols, this is his race. He knows how to win this race. He gets horses absolutely fit for their life. Like Frodon went on to win this race, and Frodon, he's a gallant horse. He's brilliant. He always runs his race. But if you look at some of the horses here and some of the horses he won that King George against, there were better horses in the race. But he somehow manages to get the likes of Frodon to win races like this. And this is the thing. Brave Man's Game is probably a better horse than Frodon. Maybe even Hitman could aspire to be a better horse than Frodon. So if they're in this field, you've also got to think about that, haven't you? Because you know how fit he's going to get them. But I am sticking with Long Press for the reasons you've said, Frankie. Like, I just think this is the best horse in the race. Whether I'm wrong this time and Brave Man's Game or another horse goes and win, and Long Press will turn out to be a better horse throughout the season, that could happen. Like, I could see Long Press going to the Cheltenham Gold Cup and winning it, and then I could also see him losing this on the way there. You know what I mean? But I can also
I agree.
I could see him winning.
So I'm happy to take that risk.
Yeah, I can see him winning.
It'll make me feel better about him losing if he goes and wins the Gold Cup.
Yeah, exactly. But we're talking strictly for this race, aren't we? So I'm in the camp of, I think the track will suit Brave Man's Game to an absolute T. I think Long Press wants a staying trip. You know how good Brave Man's Game jumps, but I think Long Press jumps nearly as good. It's a tricky one for me at the top because I think he's out of them too. And I might have egg on my face. I can't have Envoy Allen. I just can't have him. I like the horse a lot. I like the horse a lot, but I just for the mishaps he's thrown in over the last 2 years, And I know they chose here straight away after winning a down roll. I don't think that down roll race turned out to be as strong as we thought it was. I think if you look at some of his jumping, he's been caught out a few times. And if you're looking back at that down roll, he's never lost a down roll. He absolutely loves it round there. It's his bread and butter. Coming over to Kempton's a little different. He's the only Irish challenger, so you've got to be wary. But for me, I don't think he's as class and act over fences as people might think he might be. So I'd rather be playing Long Press and Braveman's game against him. I think it's tough for Hitman because he's a lovely horse. This might just come a bit too soon for him because I think he's progressing all the way. He's only 6 years of age. And I just think as a chaser, he's got a lot more to come. And I think he's starting to show it. That run last time at Haydock was brilliant. But I just can't have him on that day. I think Frodon will run his race, but probably won't win it. If the ground gets really soft, Royal Pagaya at 22 is probably a big price. But again, first run of the season, it's very tough. And then Hoist Senor's got to jump better. And the other two, Eldorado Allen might be a nice price at 33s to grab that third spot or second spot, but I don't think he'll win the race. And Miller's Bank, it's tough, isn't it? So yeah, Long Press for me, but it's a fascinating renewal because I think Long Press is the best horse in the race. But will he be for this specific race, if you get what I'm saying? Because there's horses in here that are just absolutely made for it. The last event on Boxing Day we're going to cover then, gents, is from Leopardstown. It's their Grade 1 brand new racing post up novice chase. Last year won by Fernie Hollow. It was a cracking race, giving a weight away to Riviere de Tel. And this year sees some potentially smart runners as well. We've got Phil Dorr at the top of the market. He's taking on again St. Roth for Willie Mullins. Hollow Games is in there, who's been dropped back to this trip of 2 mile one, has looked absolutely brilliant on his sole chase run. And we've also got Midnight Run and Visionarian in there. Frankie, we'll start with you. Who do you like in this one?
Yeah, well, I'm going to go with St. Rob, but the market's kind of made that decision for me. I think 5s is way too big. He just fluffed a few fences when second to Phil Dorr. He has to jump better, so I'm pinning my hopes on that. And I guess that's why the market has got it the way it is, because he didn't jump that well, but that was back from a break of nearly 150-day break in his first start over fences. I mean, he's got talent. He's running enough Irish champions and champion hurdles behind the top horses, the speed horses around 2 miles. He just has to jump better. But as I said, I can make excuses. A bit of a break, first start over fences. I think he's too big a price. And it wouldn't surprise me to see him reverse that with Phil Dorr if he does jump better and get into a better rhythm and just finish his race. The last kind of couple of fences are crucial. When they pick up the pace, he has to jump better when the pace is picked up. But if he does, got every chance. And for me, 5s is a nice price.
Yeah, he could be a big prize coming into that race, couldn't he? Paul, who are you going with?
I've gone with Phil Dorr, who got the better of St. Roy. He was 4 legs to the better when they clashed at Navan. I think unless he underperforms, I do fancy him to confirm that form. Hollow Games as well was a good winner over fences at Navan. I think Dennis O'Regan's going to get a good tune out of him once more. Again, this is set to be a real cracker. Just the 5 runners, and between the top 3, it should be a real belter. But I've gone with Phil Dorr.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's an absolutely cracking race. Even those 5 runners, those 3 at the top of the market can make it a right battle against each other. I'm in your camp here, Paul. I am going with Phil Dorr. And Jack Kennedy's made my mind up slightly on this because I don't think he gets it wrong when he chooses the one he wants to ride. Obviously, he could have chose between the Hollow Games and Phil Dorr. And everyone wants a winner at Christmas, especially in a Grade 1. So I'd like to think he's made the right decision. The form he's had last season as a hurdler behind Vauban, obviously finishing second to him 3 times in Grade 1s. Before that was winning Grade 2, Grade 3 races around this time of year. He's a horse that wants 2 miles, but could also get 2 mile 4 in the future, I think. Because even though he shows pace, he shows staying ability after he's come off the bridle. And that's what I think will win him in this race. If he's jumping sound, I think he was sound enough on debut against St. Roy. For enough for me and to me to show that I'd rather have Phil Dorr, and yet obviously you can see that in the prices. But I just think that'll be crucial. Jumping the last, I don't think there'll be much between any of those 3 horses, and I just think his staying ability at the end will be enough to see him home. So Phil Dorr for me there. But I think, like you said, Paul, it's a cracking race. And another thing that also swung me in the way of him was the £6 he's getting off those top 2 were next to him in the market. He's obviously off 11.6. He's 4 years of age. Hollow Games and Saint Roch, both 11-12. So that obviously does help a lot in your decision, but it also reflects in the odds. Right, then we're going to cover. That's everything with boxing. Now we're going to cover a few of the big races on the 27th. Obviously, they're from an anti-post point of view, and something I've never understood, lads, why we get the decks so early for Boxing Day, but the decks only come out on Boxing Day for the 27th. I've never understood that. Surely, if there's no racing on,
they've got to have a Christmas break, James.
No, but yeah, but
they're getting stuck into Christmas dinner.
Yeah, but it's Christmas Eve. Like, you could do it in the morning, still go and have a drink after, couldn't you? So yeah, but anyway, we're talking from an anti-post perspective. We do know sort of what horses might turn up for these races. So the first one we're going to cover is the Grade 2 Ladbrokes Wayward Lad and Novices Chase over 2 miles. It looks another good renewal, doesn't it, Paul?
Yeah, again, another recipe for a belter here. I've gone with Thunder Rock, who's a perfect 2 from 2 over fences following victories at Uttoxeter and Ascot. He's the highest rated in the field, and he should prove difficult to beat. Another I think worth to mention is Galore Descendance, who's a horse that I tipped up before when he was hampered early on in a handicap hurdle at Ascot in October. He has since run out an easy winner of a handicap hurdle at Doncaster. That was towards the end of November. He had one run in a point-to-point. That was at Maysmore Park back in 2020. And he unseated early on, I think, in that. He definitely unseated at some stage, which I wouldn't hold against. Maysmore is not the easiest place. It's a really, really tight left-handed track. So you could forgive him that. But if he takes the fences, he should run a nice race. But I think Thunder Rock is the one to have to beat.
Yeah, I am fond of Thunder Rock. I think he's been a great horse, and I think he could be one of the poster boys, really, for Ollie Murphy to really kick him on. Who are you going for in this one, Frankie?
Boots Hill. If he goes, hopefully. A horse that I remember they were wanting to send him chasing really early on. He was entered at Newbury on, I think, after 2 starts maybe over hurdles, and I don't think racing went ahead, or he was a non-runner. And then he was beat odds on at Exeter, went back over hurdles, and then this season is 2 from 2 in handicaps off a rising mark up to 140, and then second to John Bon, which got no issues coming second to a potential Arkle winner. I think he was always made for fences. For whatever reason, it didn't work out early on, but he's looked really good this season. And, second to John Bon, this looks like more suitable competition. I think he's in with a great chance. So Boot Hill for me.
Yeah, it's like you said, it is a tough race, isn't it? Because we're all going for 3 different horses. I can see your case, Paul, for Thunder Rock, because like I said, I think he's a really, really nice horse. And I think I've liked that he's been put in, if he gets put into this race, you get to see him try and step up from the handicap into a Grade 2 and then hopefully turn into a Grade 1 horse. But we'll have to see. I can see the case for Boot Hill. Obviously, the form behind John Bon last time. He did creep up to John Bon to try and take him on. Obviously, John Bon, he's a better horse, but they're shoving him in those races. He obviously like him a lot. But for me, and a fascinating horse, is Lac du Constance for the Skeltons. If you look at the interview Dan Skelton did after this horse won last time out, they were said, look, he's a bit of a baby. He's got to do a lot of growing up. Maybe not this year. We'll go for the Grade 1s, but he's going to be a Grade 1 horse later down the line. So for me, to put in this, I was a bit wary. Like, and I still am, that he might not turn up. But if he does turn up, he would be my selection in this, because I think he's got so much ability. It's untrue. I'm a massive fan of this horse. If you look at what he did over hurdles, he showed a lot of form, but to me, he always looked like he was going to be a chaser. He won his first race at Exeter, went over to Exeter again in a listed event, made it 2 over 2 over hurdles, beat Peking Rose over hurdles, and that's gone on to be a nice horse this year. Finished last season at Warwick, another novices hurdle, give bundles away in that, and he landed a hat-trick, winning by 12 lengths. Like I said, he's very lightly raced. The Skeltons know that, and I think they're treating him to be lightly raced. So when he comes into his full fruition, maybe 7-8, he could have a massive, massive career. If you look at what he did over fences, last time out was over 2 mile 2 at Kempton. He blitzed a field and obviously he's chased by about 20 lengths. You go and look at the way he jumped that day. It was absolutely brilliant. I hope he turns up, because for me, I really do like him. And that's Lac de Constance in that race. Right then, the feature event at Kempton on the 27th is the Grade 2 Desert Orchid Chase, won in the past by some absolutely superb horses. And this year we are seeing some nice ones again, because we have Edwardstone at the top of the market, currently 1-2 in the market. Nuba Negra, obviously Slur Chase winner, 5-2. Captain Guinness could come over from Ireland, 6-1. Obviously, won last time out. You've got the Champion Chase second last year, Fun and Ball Savola at 10s. And then if they turn up, Call Sublime, Editor de Gite, Dolos, Mr. Fisher, all 16, 20s, 33-1 in the market, with Size and Potsy at the back at 33s as well. Paul, we'll start with you again on this one. I think it's really tough to beat Edwardstone, isn't it?
Yeah, I think this is a bit like Constitution Hill, short and sweet. Yeah, if he gets around, he looked as good as ever when taking the Tingle Creek when last seen. Noob Negra has £5 to find on ratings, and I think this is priced accordingly. Edwardstone is the one they'll have to catch.
Yeah, I completely agree. Frankie, you in the same camp?
Same boat, yeah. About the only thing that makes this slightly interesting is Nuba Negra in there. And I don't think that's interesting in the sense that he might beat Edwardstone. I think it's just another horse to measure him up against. He's beaten Fernando Savola, a couple of the others as well. And Nuba Negra is probably the other kind of grade one horse that we haven't seen Edwardstone go against yet. So if he goes and beats him like he did the others in the Tingle Creek, and he has to others in the past, then it's just another tick in his box, isn't it? And all roads to a Champion Chase, which I think at the moment he's overpriced for against an Urgemine. So yeah, I'm a big Edwardstone fan. Solid as ever, should win.
Yep, I completely agree with you, and I think he is overpriced for the Champion Chase. I'm a huge fan of Energamine, but if you look at the two seasonal debuts this season, you'd say Edwardstone's was far more impressive than what Energamine's was. But obviously, you've got to take into account Energamine's been there, done that, won a Champion Chase, and obviously the race he had with Shishkin last year was unbelievable. But Edwardstone, yeah, for me, I think 1 to 2, you can shove him. Like if you're backing him now, you shove him in all your multiples. I can't see a horse of the same caliber in the Tingle Creek as in here. Going to beat Shishkin and Grenatine's race pretty much in the Tingle Creek and beat him by 9 lengths. I can't see anyone going as close here. I think if you look at Nuba Nebra, likes to come off the pace, and I think Edwardstone will be gone by the time he makes his challenge. I think he'll win quite easy, and I just can't see anything that's going to take him on. So Edwardstone as well for me. Right then, lads, we're going to finish with a very, very tricky one, and it is the Welsh Grand National over 3 miles, 6.5 furlongs. Last year's renewal only saw about 4 or 5 finishes. Hopefully we see more this season. But who are you going for, Frankie, in the Welsh National?
We'll go for 2 because it's very hard. Yeah. Ask Me Early was campaigned for this last year and didn't make the race. For an 8-year-old and a staying chaser, lightly raced, you could say, and for that reason retains quite a handy mark. Has won round Chepstow before. I think that's really important to have some course form around Chepstow. Like I said, they targeted this last year. They're targeting it again. 138 looks perfect. Well, lighter would be perfect, but looks good enough. A third behind Le Milos, your Hennessy winner the next time out. Isn't bad form as well after a 260-day break. I think all roads have led towards this race, and they will be happy enough coming here. To Ask Me Early would be the main selection. One right down the bottom, the old boy. We love the old boys. The 11-year-old Cyclop. I mean, 11 years old is old enough to go and win a race like this. I probably wouldn't suggest that he wins, but about 66-1, he has got a wealth of staying experience. Goes on all grounds. Could probably run 5 miles if you asked him to. Has won at Chepstow before. Has gone round Chepstow loads of times. I think he's won at Chepstow 3 times as I look at it. Actually, he's placed in his last 3 starts this season, a third, and a second off similar marks. He's just overpriced and could plod into a place. You'll get extra places in this race. As I said, course distance, any ground or suit, he'll stay all day. He's been in reasonable form. The old boy's still got a little bit left to give. So Ask Me Early, the main selection, and then Cyclop way down the bottom, maybe plod into a place.
Well, we don't mind that at old boy at 66-1. We don't mind that at all. And in a race like your nationals that can throw up big price winners. So at 66-1 down at the bottom of the market, Cyclop for Frankie, that'd be a lovely, even just to hit the frame, wouldn't it? Like you said, there'll be extra place on offer. You just have to shop around with different bookies. And obviously Ask Me Early's got a big chance. Harry Fry's been set up for this race, hasn't he? Paul, who are you going for in this one?
Well, I got 3 that I'm going to give a mention to. And out of those 3, I got one main selection. I'm going to begin with Punitive, who's a horse I tipped up in the Tri-Town, but unfortunately unseated early. That was at Navan towards the end of November. He won well. He won the Porterstown and Fairyhouse at the beginning of December since that. unseat. That was only a few days after that. I think the Tri-Town was 27th November and the Portlaoise was at the beginning, that first weekend at Fairyhouse in December. So Punitive is going to be an interesting contender. Should he line up? Big Dog hasn't looked back. He's won his last two. He was not sure if Punitive had to stay up in the Tri-Town, how close he would have got to the Big Dog. So the Big Dog's going to be another one of interest should he team up, and I'd imagine he would. Peter Fahy's already booked the services of Aidan Coleman at this early stage. But the one I've gone with from a family, a good staying family that I know well. I rode his brother in a Reynolds many moons ago, and that's the Henry Daly trained Fortescue, who unseated. I didn't think his chance had gone in the national when he unseated. He unseated 4 out. He was starting to stay on. I don't think he would have won, but I did have a little each way flutter on him that day, and I thought he was in the process of staying on, maybe just nicking a place, but we'll never know. And thankfully, he looked as good as ever when finishing 4th in the Beecher Chase when last seen. His chances would be greatly enhanced if rain arrived. Love to see a bit of juice arrive at Chepstow between now and Tuesday. So, but all things, a little bit of a case of the heart ruling the head here. I've gone main selection is Fortescue.
Yeah, around 20, 25 to 1 in the market. So a nice big price. And like you say, sometimes you do that when we're looking at some of these horses, that they stay in your heart, don't they? So yeah, Fortescue, he has got a right chance. I think you're right. In the national, he wasn't out of it at all. So yeah, you've got a big chance.
It's a family I know well, and like I backed him at Ascot when he won. He's you know, and if you stop the race at Ascot just before the straighten up for home, you would have ruled him out as the winner. You would have said absolutely no. It's a family I know well. The family they would never do anything in a hurry, but there is genuine as they would give you 110 every time. If you're going to war, you definitely want to be, you know, that they just have that bit of steeliness in them. They're as genuine as anything, but they're just that one gear and that to just stay and plod away. So if the rain arrives, I don't think Fortescue will be as big as 20. I don't think we'll be seeing 20 to 1.
Well, my selection actually would love a bit of rain as well, and I actually really quite like this one. It's one I've been lining up for the Welsh National for some time, and it's best priced at 8 to 1 currently, and that's the Galloping Bear for Ben Clark. This horse, if you look, he's always wanted a trip and always looked his best over a trip. So when he went to Lingfield last season and stepped him up to 3 mile 5 on heavy ground in the Surrey National, and he went on to win really well. He was up £5 for that to a mark of 140. He went to Haydock in February. It was actually around my birthday when I actually went to Haydock that day, and it was torrential rain. Like, it was sleet. There was snow. There was rain, and we got to the racecourse and I thought, there's no way this is going to be on. And you know what Haydock's like as well, with how deep that ground can go. Anyway, it was on. It was the Grade 3 Grand National Trial. And this horse went on to win, beating Bristol Demai. It was an absolutely superb performance off 140. Since then, he's come back. He's actually been disqualified from the race for a bad substance. But if you read what the banned substance was, it wasn't a performance enhancing. It was just a one that's banned within the rules. So I'm hoping on his own merits that didn't have anything to do with why he went on to win that race. He's still on a mark of 140 for this. So he's on the same mark as when he won that Grand National Trial at Haydock. He's had one run this season. That was over hurdles at Carlisle, over 3 mile 1. Absolute pipe opener. That was all it was. It was a spin round. He finished 12 lengths behind the winner. It was just to get him round. He's been set up for this race for a long, long time. And for me, off a mark of 140, he's got juice in his mark. And at 8 to 1, he's an absolutely cracking price. So the Galloping Bear in the Welsh National, something I've been waiting for a long time. And 8 to 1, I'm going to snap that price up, and I think he'll go off shorter personally. Right then, gents, that's it. That's it for the Christmas special. We've covered a few races from different race courses, and you know what time it is now. It's time for your Christmas naps, please. And this can be from any race we've covered or anything over the Christmas period that you just think is going to go and win a race. And Frankie will give you the honour this week.
Oh, well, yeah. We always like to try and go a little bit left field these days, don't we? We never like the complete obvious selection. But, I mean, McFabulous, we were all in agreement that should go and win, but a little bit short. I'm going to go into Overdrive in that big handicap at Wetherby. Play that each way. I can't see you not getting your money back, and hopefully we'll go and win.
Yeah, solid enough shout, around 6 to 1. Yeah, and definitely looks at each way bet to nothing, doesn't it? Paul, for yourself?
There's greyhound racing on in Dundalk tonight, and does matter. Yeah, no. joking. We got no Dundalk to mention this week, which we talked about off air. But yeah, I'm gonna go. Leopardstown, 12:35 on Monday. Maiden hurdle. I'm with the Gordon Elliott train, Dr. Bravo. Jack Kennedy's on board. Dr. Bravo was a good winner of a bumper at Berryhouse on his sole start on December the 3rd, and I think he's interested in this one. For the sole, another reason is that a horse that I tipped up as a dark horse for the season in our National Hunt preview was another from the Gordon Elliott stable, a horse called On V. And On V was also entered up in this race. But On V, I'm guessing, is going to opt for Limerick on the 28th. So I think Dr. Bravo will take the beating in that 12:35 at Leopardstown on Monday the 26th. And I think On V, should he turn up, will be the one to have to beat in the 12:20 at Limerick on Wednesday.
Lovely stuff, staying in Ireland. Then, so like you said, Frankie, I think I would put McFabulous up there, but we want to have a bit of a prize for Christmas, don't we? And it's where I just finished this off. So the Galloping Bear, 8-1 each way. Welsh National hopefully goes and wins. I think he's got an absolute cracking chance. Just been set up for the race and just really wants to stay in trip. If he gets any more rain at Chepstow, he'll absolutely love it. He just wants his hoof that deep in the ground. It's untrue. So for me, the Galloping Bear 8-1 is enough. And gents, that's it for this week's show then. Thanks as always for your selections. I hope you have a lovely Christmas, as do all our viewers. Please be sure to like this video, comment your selections or your nap for the Christmas period, and we'll check them out. And also be sure to subscribe to the Wheels Enclosure channel. Lads, like I said, have a good Christmas. And when everyone's back in, best of luck over the Christmas period with your betting. Cheers, gents.